Charlie Kirk is going to be joining us, founder and president of Turning Point USA. He's also chairman of Students for Trump, one of the top 10 most engaged Twitter handles in the world. Also host of The Charlie Kirk Show, which it's a podcast that ranks among the top news shows on the Apple Podcast charts. And he's also authored America's #1 book, The MAGA Doctrine, The Only Ideas That Will Win the Future. And Charlie Kirk joins us now. Charlie, welcome to Rick and Bubba.
Yeah, thanks so much. Honored to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Charlie, congratulations on the book, the endorsement from President Trump. It looks like things are rolling.
Well, they are. Thank you so much. And I just love speaking to my good friends from the great state of Alabama, one of my favorite states in the entire country. And things are going great. The book has been off to a pretty overwhelming start. We were #1 for a couple days, and we're still jockeying up and down us versus Carrie Underwood, it looks like. So hopefully we can continue to get that's good competition to be in.
Now you know how Bo Bice felt.
Yeah,
that's exactly. Hey, I remember the Bo Bice, Carrie Underwood American Idol. I think there were some other people in that season that were quite talented as well. But I'll be in Alabama actually tomorrow, and with Congressman Matt Gaetz at Books A Million. Would love some of your listeners to come on by and get a copy and say hi. But no, it's great to be here and great to be talking to you guys, and excited for it to continue to promote the book.
Yep. Well, that's we got your links and show notes. So that's Brookwood Village tomorrow night, and you can go by and see Charlie. And we also you can all those details if you want to get reservations. That way that you're going to get a place in line. We have that link in show notes, so you can RSVP. And, of course, we have charliekirk.com, too. So all of you in Alabama, get out and give Charlie Kirk a Sweet Home Alabama welcome, 7:30 tomorrow night at Books A Million.
Charlie, tell us a little bit about the book. Tell us why this book is #1. What are people loving about it?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The book's succeeding, and the feedback I'm getting is exactly why I wrote the book, which is try to do a full examination of the Trump presidency, of why Trump believes what he believes, what he's doing, and to create a conservative blueprint for generations to come. I, for one, the reason I wrote the book is I was reading the New York Times and watching liberal television, and I was hearing people who hated the president tell me why the president was doing what he was doing incorrectly. I said, you guys hate the president. Why am I listening to you? Who's actually done the work to articulate what the Trump Doctrine is, what the Trump set of ideas is? And that's what the MAGA Doctrine is all about. It's about American renewal, American sovereignty. It's about restoring the rule of law, religious liberty, restoring the working class in our country, and it's been a great success. And people are finding a lot of information, a lot of enlightenment, hopefully, from the book, and it resonates because the character assassination towards Trump supporters from the left is that Trump supporters have no idea what they're talking about, that it's lacking in philosophy, there's no depth. I make the argument it's the exact opposite, that there's more wisdom in the Trump base than any of the academic elites on the left, and that the people that are plumbers and electricians and union members that are working with their hands, they finally have a voice in Washington, D.C. that's been long overdue.
Charlie, let me ask you this. Here in the U.S., we have the highest standard of living really in the history of mankind. We have all kind of technology, all kind of breakthroughs, medicine, transportation. I mean, we live in a wonderful time compared to the history of man. And why do you think that socialism is on the rise? Because it is in direct opposition to what has made America great. Why is that is that coming up again? Why is it catching fire?
Well, look, it's very tempting to want to be generous with other people's money, and this is nothing new, unfortunately. The more that we see people, covet what other people have, it's really rooted in greed and jealousy. But I'll tell you, it's also because of our education system, and this is the work that we do at Turning Point USA, which is to try to educate students and try to inspire them around American exceptionalism and first principles. But it's very scary, and your listeners have to realize that socialism is on the rise in this country. It's still being debated whether or not a socialist will be nominated in the Democrat Party, but that's not going away. This kind of socialist insurgency of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the clueless communist from New York City, or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, they're not going away. And the Democrat Party is going to have that kind of fight within their ranks for quite some time. But we as conservatives, we as patriots have to understand that this is the most sinister ideology in the history of the world that has resulted in 100 million people dead over the last 100 years. It destroys civilizations. And so, I like our chances with President Trump currently. I think we're going to do some great stuff. I have to say, you guys got to get rid of Doug Jones, do whatever it takes. No matter who you put up, you got to get rid of him. He's been a total disaster for the great state of Alabama and has not done a good service for all the amazing people in your wonderful state. And look, I'll tell you that the rise of socialism is directly correlated with the broken culture. And the more we engage in it and the more that we are able to kind of fight back on college campuses and the media, the more we're going to win.
Charlie, and that's a great point. I think conservatives finally broke through in the media. Now, obviously, the media is very left-leaning, but we did away with the fairness doctrine. We got talk radio out there, Success, Rush Limbaugh, a lot of other people to lesser degrees, Fox News. We do have at least a conservative voice out in the media now, but we have yet to break through education that you were talking about. And we did a podcast about 2 weeks ago about government education and how it was really founded by communists who were trying to, re-educate people in our country to their line of thinking, and they've been wildly successful, even though there's a lot of very great classroom teachers. But how do we change that part of our culture? I feel like as conservatives, we're totally losing the battle with education.
No doubt. And look, so I think, one of the things I talk about in the MAGA doctrine is the need to engage in culture, is that it's not just enough to pass good legislation, it's not just enough to, support good policy, but we have to engage in culture, and we have to make sure that the education system is at least somewhat balanced. And it's not that way at all right now. The MAGA doctrine is about engaging in the 7 mountains of cultural influence, which we have been losing for so long: family, pop culture, social media, business, finance. President Trump has done this better than any other person that we have seen in recent memory. And I, for one, love the fact that the left is finally on defense. The fact that they are scrambling is a tremendous thing. But we have truth on our side. The values of freedom and liberty and American exceptionalism are so important. And, I was talking about this with somebody who's coming to the event tomorrow via text message in the event in Birmingham. And he said, Charlie, it's so refreshing to finally see conservatives go to college campuses, to finally go to want to express these viewpoints. And that's all part of the MAGA doctrine, too, which is to play offense.
Well, I think it's important, and just kind of to parlay on what Bubba just said, because I think that there's a generation that if we educated them correctly and clearly on what we really mean by socialism, I don't think they really know what it means, and they don't understand all the things that you mentioned in the book. So your book is helpful, but I think you engaging on the college campus, we had a caller even in the last few weeks said, my son thinks he's a socialist, and what do I do? And we said, well, here's the things he needs to know. And then he called back a few days later and said, okay, he's not a socialist anymore because they just hear the word, but they really don't know what it means. And I think that is a strategy of the educational system.
That's right.
To not let them truly know what socialism means. And there's almost a propaganda to prop it up as something wonderful. So that it is important. I think if the next generation, because let's face it, guys, Trump, even if he wins, it's 4 more years. That's it. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what you're talking about in this book too. If we want the future to remain and continue on this path, it's beyond Trump.
That's right, and it's a conservative blueprint for generations to come. And I want the conservative movement to be one that embodies the MAGA doctrine of putting our country first, putting our citizens first, of pushing back against the left, of free market capitalism and free enterprise, and fair and impartial judges, and conservative policies, a pro-life agenda. These are the things that our country needs, and the things that we've been able to deliver so much success around the MAGA doctrine, if you will, is to be able to crystallize and distill it into something that conservatives can learn from for future generations. Because as you said it best, students are being indoctrinated into our schools, and I visit more college campuses than almost anyone in the entire kind of conservative community. And I could tell you that this battle is just beginning, and we have to continue to play offense.
Charlie, let me ask you this. We'd mentioned earlier, and I had said that even though the economy is good and the judges are good, the Trump legacy long-term in our country may be the most important thing. He has taught conservatives to fight back and go on offense, and you made reference to that. I think you're part of that. I think we see other politicians a part of that the old way of doing it of, well, we want to look presidential, we want to look gentlemanly, we want everybody to love us, did not work against the left-wing opposition. Trump has shown us you can fight back and you can win even if the media says you're a bad guy.
That's exactly right. And look at Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, look at what with the fight with Brett Kavanaugh, and your disgraceful senator, Doug Jones, voted against the Honorable Brett Kavanaugh and betrayed the people of Alabama. And that should never be forgotten. That should be mentioned every single day until Doug Jones is unemployed or maybe employed by some lobbying firm as a former senator of Alabama. But look, President Trump stood by Brett Kavanaugh. He fought very hard. He fought for what was right. And finally, conservatives were united for the right principles and for the right ideas. And I can tell you that, the more that we as conservatives stand in solidarity to each other, more that we're able to have firm principle. And that's what I talk about in the MAGA doctrine, which is what exactly do we believe as conservatives? And I think part of it is also putting our country first. No more China appeasement, no more endless wars, no more failed nation building in Afghanistan, which President Trump is heroically ending the endless war in Afghanistan. No more silly trade deals that are going to be enriching other countries at our expense. And we're seeing the positive benefits because of all that.
Well, if you want to see Charlie Kirk in person tomorrow night at Books A Million, they're at Brookwood Village. Details and show notes at rickandbubba.com. If you want to use that link, you can RSVP. Matt Gaetz will also be joining him.
A rising star. We're going to see a lot more out of Matt. Rick.
Yeah, so we need a warm welcome for Charlie Kirk when he comes to our home state of Alabama. If you want to see where he'll be maybe near to your state, go to charliekirk.com, and, of course, the MAGA Doctrine available everywhere.
Thank you, Charlie.
Rick and Bubba, Rick and Bubba.